Well, good morning. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word, and my question this morning would be: this is number 4 of a 7-set series of choices, and this number 4 would be named "Are We Making Good Choices?" We were talking about in family life. Did we make a good choice when we picked a wife, or did we make a good choice when we picked our husband? If we didn't make a good choice, we can choose now to make it be a good choice. Yes, suppose you have a man that you're not happy with. You know what your problem is. Your problem's not the problem with the man. Your problem's with yourself. You must first come now to the place to where you said, when you said, I do, I will serve this man or this woman with all my heart, and I will do that. Now your choice needs to be not to separate, not to get divorced, not to separate, but to make it work. How do you make it work? You start working on changing your thinking. How do you change your thinking? Well, the man's got a messy yard, and you say, I don't like this messy yard. Well, there's a good possibility that man will have a messy yard when he dies. He may never change. On the other hand, you can change him by doing this. Don't pick at him anymore. Agree with him. Don't say anything else about the yard. Forget the yard. The yard's not important. If the yard's messy, it's not important. It is not as important as the marriage. The marriage is more important than the yard. So your choice would be, to make a good choice, would be to choose the man over the yard. Choose the man over the habit of the yard. You didn't marry the yard. You married the man. And if the man has some things you don't like, you didn't marry those things you don't like. You married the man for what he was, not really knowing what he was. And because you did, and you said, I do, before you knew, you say, now, if I knew what I know now, what I knew then, or whatever, I sure probably wouldn't have married him. Well, do you love the man and hate his habits? Or do you hate the man and his habits? What's the deal? The deal is you married the man, now you're supposed to love him. And you married the woman, fella, now you're supposed to love her. How do you change each other without changing each other, or without trying to change each other? You do it through love. Love covereth a multitude of sins, the Bible said. Now, how do you do that? You love past that. You say, I don't care, man. I know. It irks me inside because of the type of person I am, that we have a messy yard. And man, you come in the house and you say, it irks me, woman, that we have a messy house inside, or whatever. Maybe you have a woman that keeps a messier house than your mother did, or whatever. You didn't marry your mother. You married that woman. And you said, until death do us part. Now, in order to keep that vow, you're going to have to make some adjustments in life. When you ask the Lord to save you and come in your heart, and you started serving God, you had to make some adjustments in your life. How did those adjustments come about? They came about by growing in love. And if you grow in love with your wife or your husband, you'll find out that you'll cover those things. And by the way, they will take care of themselves. You know, if you put enough love on your husband, before you die, you'll probably see your yard cleaned up. Man, if you put enough love in your wife and get her to where she can be obedient to you, and when you suggest something, it becomes an action on her part, then that's true love. But if your love is just a whim, if your love is just what it was the day you got married, then you hadn't learned yet what love really is. And that's the way, by serving Jesus. When you're serving Jesus, the more you serve him, the closer you get to him, the more you love him, the more you're able to put down the things in life Uh, for instance, I had to learn to love Jesus more than I did a pack of cigarettes. Well, was that a learning process, Brother Peter? Yes, it was. I'm here to tell you right now. It was a learning process for me. It wasn't so much that the sin of the matter was not so much that the cigarettes would kill me and give me cancer. The problem was that I let that cigarette be a god before the God of heaven. And you can do that same thing with your wife or your children or your car or all kinds of things, or your fishing buddies or your fishing trip or your hunting trip. You can let something be your God in your life if you're not careful. And you will do that if you're not careful. So choices make a difference. Choices make a difference. We started out this morning early on this theme of choices. And we're doing 7 little excerpts, 10-minute things, 70 minutes on about choices. What kind of choices have you made? When you chose each other to get married in your house, you did not choose what kind of children you were going to have, whether you were going to have girls or boys, and that was not up to you. That was up to God. And so you had a time together, and here comes a child, and it's a boy. Well, good. And the wife says, I sure would like to have a girl. So you get together again, and you have another boy. Well, you wanted a girl, but are you going to throw that boy out? Is your choice going to be, well, it's so disappointing that we had 2 boys instead of a boy and a girl. I'm going to throw that boy out. No, you're not going to throw him out. You're going to love him. And that's what God does. God chose us, and He loves us in spite of the fact some of us may still smoke. Some of us may even drink a beer or 2. Some of us may do some things that really aren't pleasing to God. But you know what? When He gives us a bath and washes us, He don't throw us out with the water. But I can tell you this. If you choose to not clean up your physical life so that your spiritual life can get bigger than your physical life, so that your inside spiritual man can show outside of your fleshly man, then you more than likely you're not going to have a good and peaceful life. You're not going to have the peaceful and contentment at home that you could have, because in fact you are displaying hypocritical actions in your life. You may not necessarily be a bona fide hypocrite. What is a bona fide hypocrite? That is a lost man. The Bible said that there's an appointed place in hell for the hypocrite. That's the man who goes to church all his life and has never said, Jesus, forgive me of my sin, come into my heart and save my soul. That's a real hypocrite. Now, there are people who have asked Jesus to come in their heart and save their soul and have some hypocritical ways, some ways they have not put down. Do they have communion with God? Yes, a certain amount. How far can they go with that communion? Only a certain distance. God will never give a man the power to be a Sunday school teacher who is not separated from the world. You remember in that first church down there that they said to choose you out 7 men filled with the Holy Spirit, filled with the Holy Spirit, filled with the Holy Spirit. You know what being full of the Holy Spirit is? If you are filled inside, filled with the Holy Spirit, you will not need the things of the world. If you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you will not need the things of the world. And by faith you got saved, and by faith you can ask God to deliver you from those things that trouble you. It was by faith. Let me tell you something about my little battle. My little battle with cigarettes. It took me a year. I battled cigarettes for a year. And finally I came to the place where I said, Lord, would you change my desire? Would you change my want to want to serve